Hello, and welcome to my Assessment 2 Backward Mapping presentation for EMA 210. In this presentation, I will cover an outline of backward mapping, learning activities, and teaching strategies. So, what is backward mapping? Backward mapping is the practice of working backwards from the assessment product as a desired outcome to devise units of work. It treats assessment, curriculum, and pedagogy as equals. Backwards mapping is goal-orientated and is beneficial to educators as it starts with a big idea. In this case, the big idea in an educated setting is the learning outcomes. This is beneficial to use within creative arts as students gain the knowledge of what they are going to learn and what the teacher intends them to gain from the curriculum. Before we begin examining some examples, it might be helpful to better understand the process of backward mapping. Wiggins and McTighe describe 3 distinct steps in the process of backward mapping. The steps for backward mapping are: 1. Identify the desired results and outcomes. This can include reviewing the curriculum expectations and set goals. 2. Determine acceptable evidence. This means to gather accessible items to assess for learning outcomes. Step 3. Plan learning experiences, such as resources, what pedagogy to use, and what skills and knowledge students need to achieve a desired goal. It is imperative for teachers to use a guided teaching framework. This includes 1. Manage student learning. 2. Use an array of learning structures. 3. Share learning amongst themselves and their students. And 4. Learning in a variety of ways, such as using different pedagogies. Teachers need to ensure this by being aware of changes, be up to date with curriculum, attend and engage in professional development, extend on their current and prior knowledge, and use an array of different teaching strategies and pedagogy. The first example we will examine is an activity to meet the syllabus outcome for creative arts in stage 3. The creative arts outcome is DAS 3.1. For this student-centered learning activity, for students to meet the required syllabus outcome, they must competently perform and interpret dances from a particular context using a wide range of movement skills and appropriate expressive qualities. With this outcome in mind, students will need to interpret knowledge from what they believe space to be and successfully transform that prior knowledge into a dance of 32 counts to represent space. This can be then classed as a cross-curricular activity with English, with students meeting the English outcome EN3-7C. Under this outcome, students need to think imaginatively, creatively, interpretively, and critically about information and identify connections between the world when responding to and composing text or ideas. For this activity, students need to brainstorm adjectives and nouns in groups to describe space, such as lovely bright stars, endless darkness, slow orbit, burning sun. Brainstorming is a teaching strategy that can be used while carrying out this activity. Brainstorming is a large or small group activity that encourages students to focus on a topic and contribute to the free flow of ideas. This is beneficial to use within the creative arts as it gives all ideas a place and allows students to think freely and use their imagination. By expressing ideas and listening to what others say, students adjust their previous knowledge or understanding, accommodate new information, and increase their levels of mindfulness. Teachers need to set up the rules while students carry out brainstorming. These can include letting the leader have control. The leader can be a scribe or the teacher. Allowing everyone to contribute and waiting until the end until evaluation is carried out so that all ideas are gathered. It also could be beneficial for teachers to set a time limit and stopping when that time is up. This is an effective way to ensure students are staying on track. It is even a good idea to count down, for example, letting students know when there is 10 minutes left, 5 minutes left, and so on and so forth. Another effective teaching strategy is peer and self-assessment. Peer assessment is a teaching strategy that gives students the opportunity to evaluate and reflect on their own works and achievements within a classroom setting, following a rubric or set guidelines. Self-assessment is much alike peer assessment. This gives students the opportunity to review their own work under a set guideline. The two assessment strategies allow students to evaluate their performance or task and gain a better understanding of how they can improve. Teachers need to remind students to be positive or give constructive feedback, as students can often be harsh on themselves or their peers. The second learning activity we will examine is an activity intended to meet the Creative Arts Subject Outcome DRS 3.3. For this student-centered learning activity, for students to meet the required syllabus outcome, they must successfully devise, act, and rehearse a drama for performance to an audience. This too can be a cross-curricular activity linked with English, meeting the English outcome EN3 2A. Under this outcome, students are required to compose, edit, and present well-structured and coherent text. Other outcomes that may be met while students complete this activity may include Human Society and its Environment outcome, CCS 3.1. Under this outcome, students are able to explain the significance of particular people, groups, places, actions, and events in the past developing Australian identities and heritage. This activity requires students to create a script and role-play humans meeting aliens. This could link this to HSIE, as prior lessons may have included a case study of visiting an unfamiliar country or migration. The teacher should include questioning to students to help them develop their script. How would you feel going to somewhere unfamiliar? Remember when we studied CCS 3.1 lesson? What sort of things took place? How could you communicate if different languages are spoken? This activity allows students to devise, act, and rehearse a drama performance for an audience. At the end of this activity, students will be able to be assessed on their ability of composing a script, acting, and performing their scene for an audience, and also meeting outcomes CCS 3.1, EN3 2A, and DRAS 3.3. Two teaching strategies inherent in this task are simulation and informal observation. For this activity, simulations could be used. These are instructional scenarios where the learner is placed in a world defined by the teacher. They represent a reality within which students interact. The teacher controls the parameters of this world and uses it to achieve the desired instructional results. Students experience the reality of the scenario and gather meaning from it. A simulation is a form of experiential learning. It is a strategy that fits well with the principles of student-centered and constructivist learning and teaching, which is why it will be beneficial to use this within the creative arts. Informal observation involves the teacher watching and listening to students. Teachers can then form ideas about how students are engaging with the set task, their understanding, and how they apply their knowledge. Informal observation can be beneficial as teachers can observe students working in their natural environment. It provides a range of students' responses. Students are able to show their ability to apply prior knowledge. Teachers should help students stay on task, intently watch and observe students, and listen to student discussion. The third example is for visual arts and aims for children to meet the syllabus outcome VAS 3.2. Under this outcome, students need to investigate subject matter in an attempt to represent likeliness of things in the world. The achieved outcome for this lesson also aims for students to project their abilities of different types of subject matter within the world. In this specific activity, students will be employing their prior knowledge of space unit completed in science, meeting science outcome ST3 8ES. Under this outcome, students explain the significance of particular people, groups, places, actions, and events in the past in developing Australian identities and heritage. Not only will students demonstrate their artistic ability, but they will also demonstrate their understanding on skills within visual arts, but they will also be depicting their understanding of the world around them. This lesson will begin with a discussion. We want to represent and draw ourselves getting sucked into space. How could we achieve this? Try some suggestions offered by students. For this activity, we will be using foreshortening or falling into space. Provide each student with a large sheet of white art paper and explain the concept of foreshortening. Foreshortening is used to portray or show an object or view as closer than it really is, or as having a less depth or distance as an effect of perspective or the angle of vision. Two of the teaching strategies in this example are discussion and model teaching. Discussion lets class members work actively with the ideas and the concept being pursued, and discussion sessions can be extremely effective in changing behaviours or attitudes. The discussion is the action or process of talking about a certain subject matter in order to reach a decision or to exchange ideas. The other teaching strategy is model teaching. Model teaching is a purposeful teaching strategy to use as it allows students to recognize the specific outcomes as a lesson focus. Students are able to use resources that allow them to manipulate concrete materials to construct their own understanding and use these resources in the application of concept and skills. When modeling, teachers need to add enthusiasm for learning. Model the set tasks to students so they know the intended outcome for the lesson, and use materials and resources that are relative to the content. Teachers should also help keep students on track. The fourth and last example of student-centered learning activities is intended for music and aims to meet the Creative Arts Syllabus Outcome, MES 3.2. Under this syllabus outcome, students need to improvise, experiment, select, combine, and order sound using musical concepts. For this learning activity, students need to successfully construct a piece of music to theme a space movie scene using the ukulele and percussion instruments. This will be completed through group work, as cooperative learning is a method of instruction that gets students to work together in groups and has many useful benefits. The two teaching strategies examined here are group work or collaborative learning and discovery. Group work or cooperative collaborative learning is a method of instruction that gets students to work together in groups. Students are able to model and share ideas and share the teaching amongst themselves. In a music setting, this is beneficial as some students may be more familiar with musical instruments than others. Collaborative learning also allows students to become active participants in their learning, help students develop leadership skills, critical thinking, and time management. It exposes students to diverse ideas and approaches, and acknowledges and utilizes individual students' strengths and expertise. Discovery. Discovery as a teaching strategy is an active process of inquiry-based instruction that encourages learners to build on prior knowledge through experience and to search for new information and relationships based on their interests. Discovery can be beneficial as it actively engages students in the learning process, motivates students to participate, encourages autonomy and independence, promotes the development of creativity and problem-solving skills, provides individualized learning experiences. Teachers should encourage students to explore, provide guidance, and provide minor structure for students that rely on classroom structure, such as suggesting ways to discover or use instruments. The analysis of examples taken from the syllabus of various creative arts subjects demonstrates the effectiveness and usefulness of the backward mapping process. Backwards mapping can be beneficial as the outcome assessments and goals are clear and have already been set to meet a desired outcome. Backwards mapping is also said to improve program organization through knowing what the end result should be, can provide a guiding structure to program components. Backward mapping can also ease assessment as educators are thinking about and planning for assessment at the start of a course or program, which ensures the appropriate data will be available for use. It can also increase student engagement. When program activities have a known objective or purpose, students perceive those activities as having more value to them. This now concludes my presentation on backwards mapping.